Okay, we're recording. It's Monday morning at 7:50 a.m. Patrick was just saying how much I still want to come up with a jingle.
Ooh, loud,
Uh-oh.
so loud, so loud.
How's that?
I
How's that
think-
sound?
Yeah.
I was doing this improvisation this morning based. Oops. Of course, when it's recording, I'm gonna fuck it up. So you were saying you want to be a public intellectual, and this is giving you some of the validation that you were. You don't want that to be
Not
public.
supposed to say that. Well, okay. Look, I have like a writing career. I've tried to write a few books. You know, I've written them, but I've tried to get them published, and they haven't yet. And like, there's a certain, so I'm comparing it directly to science and the kind of reward and validation you get from being a scientist and producing like data.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
You don't produce data as a scientist. You produce like ideas, no, or theories, or.
I mean, if you're zoomed in far enough, you know that like you're storytelling when you're doing science. Like a Nature paper is a carved out piece
Right.
of a large body
So
of.
it's the opposite of data in a way.
I mean, yeah, you're collecting data and then you're telling a story from
Right.
that, which is very similar, I think, to like in journalism. You're just observing the world and then you're carving out a story.
Actually,
Just
lower the mic a little
subset
because it's
of
just
that.
blocking your face a little bit, and I
Oh,
don't think
mine-
it's improving the sound necessarily. Just like an inch. There you go. Good. That looks better.
And I think I realized my goal in life is to, like get people to think about things they don't normally think about. If introspection is a kind of skill, without being a therapist or like a critic, if introspection is a kind of skill, I want to like have a dialogue about how to be better at introspecting.
Is
And I want-
extrospection a word?
Probably.
Or
I
is
don't know what
just
that means.
The opposite of introspection.
Exclusively studying the outside world or something. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure extrospection is a word, right? Just looking outside.
Uh-oh.
Nah, it's just something in my throat. Larry David.
We're living in
episode.
an era when every cough, like I woke up with a little bit of a sore throat, and I was like, oh shit. But I'm
Really?
okay.
Are we both coughing now? Uh-oh.
No, I'm not coughing. It was just sore throat.
Yeah. Okay.
For you, those of you listening in the future, we're in the time of COVID right now, so there's a extreme, justified paranoia, hypochondria.
Right. Yeah. So it's one of my transitions, like kind of out of science, involved, or out of like like the day-to-day wet lab scientist, right? Like day-to-day kind of neuroscience, was that like you do a thing and you create a paper or you publish your results, and just not that many people hear about it.
Yeah.
And I know that it's not about that, but I do think scale matters, and I do think the impact you have in the world. We get one of these lives. Who the hell knows what to do with it? No one really knows like what kind of guide they're following. And it just mattered to me that like when I wrote nonfiction, so many more people actually got to read it. When I give lectures, I give like kind of like pop science lectures.
Mm-hmm.
And that is my favorite thing to do in the world, in part because you have a kind of, and teaching, partly because you have an audience at attention. And I consider it to be like, if you have a room full of people's attention, and I consider this podcast to be equal to that, like having, let's say it's 50 human brains attending to you, that is an honor.
Oh yeah.
And that is a privilege, and you should not like waste that right, or you should not waste that honor. And I genuinely like want to do something where I can kind of make people see, or hope to make people see, or like question things that they don't normally question, or introspect about things they don't normally think about. And so that's why I studied mind control parasites. That's why I wanted to like figure out this ancient forensics, whether or not like ancient Egyptians had a little parasite in their brain.
So where does it cross over from like this kind of more benevolent, altruistic way of interpreting it to like a more narcissistic, like wanting of validation and attention for oneself?
Well, I mean, so it feels good to get feedback, right? It feels good to effectively just get like comments on social media, kind of
Right.
thing. You want the like, you want the little heart, and it's not like Twitter and Facebook like invented this out of scratch. Like they did not invent social primate reward systems. They just exploit them. And so like the concept of liking, the concept of commenting and just approval, that's deeply ingrained in our like socialness as little primates. And so I do very much think like it just feels good to hear you're doing something that impacts people.
Yeah,
like
so
it's not a currency, but it's just nice.
There's two things I was left with thinking about yesterday after our polyamory conversation, plus watching The Social Dilemma, this new documentary about how social media companies are exploiting exactly what you're talking about. And I watched the film, and then you were talking about the desire for state change that addicts have, and I went to bed thinking about the positive side of that they don't really mention in the film, right? They talk only about it as an exploitation and as a kind of thing, triggering these dopamine rewards. But I was thinking, well, obviously those are there for a reason. The fact that it does trigger dopamine rewards means that there is something positive to that, and it's like what you're talking about now, and obviously there's something positive to state change. It seems better than stagnation in some level. So I would love to kind of go deeper today and talk about when is it deeply positive and when is it compulsive and addictive and behavior, and how do we distinguish those two, because we need to do that. I mean, I didn't come away from the film wanting to delete my social media, as some people do, but I did come away realizing I have a bit of a problem with it, and that I would like to manage it somehow. And it's the same way as it's really similar to my attitude towards drugs and alcohol. Luckily, I've never had an addict behavior, and I feel so lucky not to be an addict because I have a lot of addiction in my family, because I do get to enjoy those things every once in a while. Then I love that I can have a beer in the evening or a glass of wine with dinner. These are wonderful additions to my life, but I know it can be such a problem where people do have to just cut it out completely, right? So what do you have a take on how we distinguish between positive reward behavior that we should engage with, and if we should listen to our dopamine levels, and when we should just like get away from them?
Yeah, well, I mean, I have an opinion. It's not really grounded in anything, but it'll sound confident when I say it. Just because something exists evolutionarily does not mean that all uses of it are positive, right? I mean, right. So like just the inherent logic of, well, we do have a natural dopamine reward system, so therefore the casinos and the slot machines and everything that exploits it are therefore somehow tapping into the goodness, right? It is definitely the case. I think about it in terms of the physicality of like moose antlers, right? Like, do you know this, like the male competition in the sexually dimorphic species? So they fight each other for competition over the female mice. I don't know how to do plural for moose.
Of moose? Meese? I think it's just mooses.
Anyway, there's probably actually just a name for the female version of that animal. And but their competition leads to, yes, it's a natural evolutionary competition, right? It's endogenous. It's in their body. It's driven by what appears to be the survival of their species. But they end up with these huge ungainly antlers that are so big and so unwieldy that they can barely hold their heads up, right? It's like evolution taken to its extreme.
Interesting.
And so outside of the kind of range, the bell curve, the average, you do get anomalous stuff. Sometimes evolution just gets caught in like local eddies and it gets exploited and it's disadvantageous. And so I really think, I mean, like we have a meta layer in society where we are able to exploit these things, right? Pinball manufacturers in the 20th century ended up becoming like slot machine manufacturers. The major manufacturer of pinball now does just slot machines in Vegas. Mm-hmm. And it's like pinball is not considered to be something that is like a dark part of society, but it used to be. In the like 30s and 40s in New York, it was banned because of its illicitness, and people were betting, and it was random, right? Uh-huh. It wasn't skill based in a certain sense, so it seemed like random betting. And it's still the case that I think there are different ways of categorizing, like on the financial side of the world, the difference between apps that have games versus apps that allow you to save versus apps that have virtual currency. It's about whether or not the game that you play is random or skill based. There's a huge like dividing line in whether or not your company counts as a bank or a gambling company or a non-gambling company based on the dopamine reward pathways. And this has downstream tail consequences for, like, if it's a gambling company, they can't do business with certain people, with certain kinds of other institutions, with certain other countries, right? And what that comes down to is, what kinds of dopaminergic rewards are you getting by virtue of playing this game, by virtue of playing a stupid little app?
Yeah.
And you can play the little stupid little game. You can play stupid little Candy Crush. You can tell where my opinions are on this. You can play stupid little Instagram. You can play stupid little Facebook. It's all the same. You're just playing a stupid game with your thumb on a phone, and it's in search of these dopamine rewards. But the social reward, like, wins over everything, right? It consumes our brain. And so, like, yeah, you can do the slot machine, or you can do these games, but nothing compares to the devastation that can be wrought by social reward and social rejection and social admiration. And it's like, it's almost too easy to say, like, well, yes, we have that, but there is sugar in nature, but we have the ability to refine, condense, and load up every single foodstuff that we eat with processed or whatever, like high amounts of sugar that are completely unnatural. And that's the exact same thing that's happening with these social media apps. It's the social phenomenon of the dopaminergic reward system, which is meant to establish hierarchy, right? So, like, in primate worlds, you will often have competitions. You'll have, like, little bits of slaps or rejections or eye contact, like all kinds of the thousands of small little social behaviors about attention and about rejection and about competition and about hierarchy and about victory. And all of those get kind of reinforced and kind of shaped by neurotransmitter responses to your loss or victory, to being rejected by someone who ranks higher than you, or being accepted by someone who ranks higher than you. It's Mean Girls. It's just Mean Girls. And so, yeah, the dopamine is there to kind of solidify and instantiate these hierarchies and your place. But just as sugar can be now, like, eaten in a cube form, we're getting just cubes of sugar from Instagram, and it's like,
and
it's
so is it all
completely
bad?
unnatural. No, I don't think it's all bad at all. I think the children of today's generation that grew up on this stuff, it looks like they're being less social, but I'm almost certain they are like Magnus Carlsens of sociality. Like, these kids are so attuned to the social world, more so than it could ever be possible. They can get social information every couple seconds through the entire day, right? What made Magnus Carlsen stand out as, like, now the highest ranked chess player in history? He could play greater than grandmaster level chess every second of every day of his childhood. These kids on social media now, they are getting, like, as much social information as they want every second of every day. Yeah. And so they are not, like, I don't think that's a disability. I think it's a savant. They're becoming savants.
I wonder. See, it's interesting because I find myself, like, so I'm quite addicted to my phone, as you know, more than any of us hanging out here. So I was watching my own behavior yesterday. Like, we were hanging out, you guys were chatting. I was also looking at my phone, and I felt like I was able to engage. I was able to, like, kind of get the gist of what you guys were talking about and get more from also reading Twitter about Donald Trump's tax returns and reading the New York Times. And if I'd had the newspaper there, it would have looked. I've often thought, like, if the things that I was reading were not on my phone but were on paper, I would just look like someone who was kind of obsessed with just ingesting information.
Right.
But the phone kind of levels it all, like, oh, you're just looking at your phone, right?
Right.
So on that one hand, I think that's cool. I like being able to, like. I remember my older brother had this stepfather who was a famous pop artist in Italy in the 70s, and he had 12 TVs in his room, and they were all just changed to different channels, and he just, like, had all 12 remote controls, and he just liked to just have them all on at all the same time, and he just liked a lot of stimulation. And I'm like that, so, and I kind of accept that about myself. But then there's this shallow hits that you get, that, like, the times that I've turned off my phone for a while and I seek that stimulation in the real world, then I'll go deeper. And maybe I would have gone deeper into contributing to the conversation yesterday rather than just, like, kind of getting some of it. And maybe instead of reading, 10 headlines, I would have read an entire article if I had the actual newspaper in front of me. And if I didn't have the newspaper, maybe I would have dived into a book. And I feel like each of those things would have contributed to my life in a more profound way probably than the distraction, the ultimately kind of distracting reward of this like stimulus need that I have. With sex too, it's interesting. Like, now we have access to porn, right? And so you can just get off, and that just becomes more and more shallow and more superficial. And I think a lot of people rightly have just decided to just not engage in that anymore.
Yeah.
Let that desire build up, and then actually commune with somebody else, or even alone probably is more rewarding if you're not just like, looking for this. It's a matter of depth, I think, that we have to consider.
This is crude and probably won't go over well, but the human species is the only it's the only species where the females do not have like a mating season. Like estrus is not just once a year or cyclical, right? That it's much more cyclical. It's not just once a year. And like a lot of primate species have like a reddened ass as a signal that the female is ready to mate, right, in estrus. And so it's just like, kind of extending the sugar and the social reward metaphor. Like, it's supposed to be a lot rarer that you see like a red ass.
Right.
But we can at any given time just look and see a red ass. And it's distorted the kind of like natural cadence by which mating is supposed to happen. And one wonders if there's a different kind of sexualization anomaly or sexualization, like concentration of it, because of the fact that that specifically Homo sapien mating is very, very different than a lot of other primate ones, and we just have access to these photographs and videos at all times. Rather than it be cyclical, rather than waiting for like a physiological endogenous response that is a signal of readiness, it's just always. And it
could be that we're just growing these giant antlers, and we're just we're going to make ourselves extinct by backing ourselves into this corner of perverted evolutionary. Maybe this is how we self-destruct. It can sure seem that way if everybody's just locked into their phones in this like masturbatory stance. So whether it's porn or Instagram, it is a form of dopamine masturbation, right?
Well, I mean, to me, the generality that I see across all of this is just simply that there's a natural cadence to these kinds of stimulus are supposed to occur in nature at a certain cadence, at a certain timing. Our physiology probably reflects the sparsity of how the stimulus is supposed to appear. Maybe mating once a year, sugar. There's a rabbit outside the library, and I would throw in like a peach or something. And this rabbit was clearly like, holy fucking shit, I found a peach in the desert. I'm going to risk life and limb for this extremely rare opportunity. It like became so close, it almost like domesticated itself for the sake and pursuit of this peach.
Yeah.
And I could tell what it was is like, when else is this guy going to find sugar? Like a ball of sugar and water in the goddamn desert? Never. And so like there's a sparsity that's supposed to occur for all these stimuli. And so what happens when we're effectively like sensory saturated across all of these things? Maybe one thing we should do though is like explain the social dilemma a little bit for those that haven't seen it. Because I also saw it recently. And it's my take on it was that it was kind of people that worked in the tech community or thought a lot about kind of tech and the kind of attention economy that has developed, where effectively what people are trying to do, what a lot of companies and apps and games, they're just trying to get your attention most of the time, and that you are not the customer, you are the product, which is, they've been bandying that about for a while. But I've like thought in this space for a while. So like I've studied mind control parasites. Controlling attention and changing preferences is the thing that I've been thinking about for like 15 years. And I still found the documentary to be like new and refreshing and actually quite interesting. And the takeaway that I got that kind of has shook me a little bit was one of the commentators, or one of the interviewees, said that, what people are buying, what the companies who are buying the ads that then feed to you, what they're buying is a subtle manipulation of your preferences and behavior.
That's what I took away too. Not just the attention.
They're trying to change it. They're trying to change something. They're trying to change preferences. And what I loved about that is like my my grad school work, my PhD was a tiny parasite that subtly changes preferences and behavior. That's all it does.
Yeah.
And I was like, holy shit. Yeah, it is true that these things are kind of insidious in their ability to get in, and they're exploiting these social primate reward pathways that we are built with. Mm-hmm. But that's just the mechanism of entry, right? So like the way that I think about the parasite version is the hardest thing that a parasite can possibly have to do, which most parasites fail at or don't even attempt because the difficulty is too high, is get into the human brain, get into the mammalian brain. The mammalian brain is Fort Knox. It is impossible to get into the mammalian brain. It is protected. It has the blood-brain barrier. It is immunologically kind of siloed. It is really hard. There's two that I know of, maybe like a border edge case third, but basically there's two parasites that get into the brain. One, we saw it in the Colorado River, the N. fowleri, the little amoeba thing, kills you instantly. 100%, I think 100% fatality. And the other is toxoplasma, which gets in. But usually if something gets in, it kills you. Because the odds of it getting in means it's basically like so good at burglaring that it made its way in that it shouldn't even be there and it will just kill you. Toxo being the other one. But like the holy grail of this kind of manipulation is getting into the brain. And so Instagram is not the parasite, it's the like shell, it's the way in. Instagram is just the like viral package in order to get into the brain. And then it releases its cargo, which is ads and addiction.
Yeah. And the addiction being the manipulated behavior, like the fact that you, gosh, it really is, it really is troubling and fascinating too, though, because it does feel like we are becoming a new iteration of of being human. And to go back to the broad theme, being in the world, which was a film that I made, that was inspired by the work of Hubert Dreyfus. We've talked about him quite a bit here and there. He was both of our philosophy professor at Berkeley. And he was interpreting Heidegger. And I think that there's a lesson to be learned here in the distinction between the type of behavior that we engage with in our phone and the other ones that I talked about in the world, whether it's reading a book or engaging in conversation. And it's the way the world pushes back. And it's the problem with these devices, and I think these, the social media and the porn and all of this stuff, is that it just gives you whatever you want, when you want it, or whatever you think you want, actually, right? But if everything is equally accessible, then it just becomes inherently meaningless, because everything is, there's infinite options with no basis on which to choose, right? So if there's a huge difference, let's not even talk about social media, let's talk about just music, Spotify. I can listen to any song, right? So when you're listening to music, you're driving in the car, you're like, wait, maybe I don't want to listen to this. Maybe I want to listen to the next thing. And then you just find yourself flipping through. And I often think about the fact that if this person was in the room playing, I wouldn't just walk out or just push a button to make them go away and make the next amazing singer, come in and sing for me, right? I mean, you would be like sitting there in awe, right? Of this amazing experience of getting to listen to this incredible, like, mature, skillful behavior of this person. And yet we just toss it away, right? And I think there's something inherent, and this is where like Marshall McLuhan's "The Medium is the Message," he was so ahead of his time saying that, but it is, in fact, it doesn't really matter that I'm reading the New York Times, or I'm looking at Instagram, or I'm looking at Twitter, or I'm even reading Dostoevsky on my phone. In a way, what's on the phone doesn't matter. What matters is that my behavior is in this kind of passive, glazed, relationship, impoverished relationship to this tiny world, instead of this beautiful, rich world out here that has all this pushback, and engaging in conversation with you guys yesterday would have been so much more deeply rewarding, because I wouldn't have known what to expect, especially if you're skillful conversers, as we talked about yesterday, how important it is that someone can surprise you, right? I feel like when you're with the phone, it doesn't matter the depth or the effort that went into it, because it's so infinitely replaceable, and it's all reduced to this same experience of looking at this little screen. So whether you're looking at a great film, or you're watching a great interview with someone, or listening to a book on tape, or listening to us right now, there's this it's too easy to just replace it with something else, and there's no actual skillful engagement with it. It doesn't matter that when you pick up the guitar. Now we talked about listening to music. Now you go a step farther and actually playing the music. There you really can't walk away, because you're an essential part of what's happening. If you put down the instrument, the music stops, right? So there you have the ultimate rich engagement that's taken you years to develop this skill, that you have this beautiful moment that's like only going to happen now because the other musicians are there and you're in this incredible space, hopefully, that the acoustics are just right. And then suddenly the world appears as unique and meaningful and somewhat miraculous. And I think that's why you have even hints of a religiosity in Heidegger and Kierkegaard more explicitly. The idea that when you have this meaningful, committed, skillful engagement with the world, you end up with a certain awe that doesn't have to be explicitly religious, but it can be. I think one of the missions of Dreyfus and Heidegger was to take the religion, find the phenomenology, and get rid of the actual need for belief, right? Anyway, I'm going all over the place here, but I think the bottom line is that we need to nurture skillful, engaged behavior with the world, and that's one of the fundamental differences that the phone is taking away.
Well, so if you go into any like modern laboratory, you will find the rabies virus, you will find the HIV virus often used and injected into mice or people or animals and things like that. But what they've done is they've taken the ability of the rabies virus, which is very, very, very good at getting into every cell. They've taken the ability of the HIV virus, which is exquisitely good at kind of subterfuge and getting around and infecting human immune cells. And then they load it up with a different kind of thing, a thing that's good for you instead of kills you, and then put that back into the body. And so what they've done is exploit the packaging and the means of transmission. They've exploited the natural means of kind of highly efficient transmission and turned it into something for good. So I think when you're talking about like renewing the awe or bringing these things for good or re-engaging with the world, something like that, I think what this era of social media has taught us is that we now have the technology to create a package, a means of transmission into the human brain and into the human attention that is unlike anything that has ever existed before, that is highly addictive, that is highly, but you know, that will be reframed. The addictive quality of this will be reframed when it starts to be used for good. You could take Instagram and have like a non-profit version of it or something where they still have that same ability to completely dominate your attention, but for some reason it's somehow used for good. I don't know how, right? But you can like reshape the thing. You can redo it. And I think that would like reestablish the engagement with the world. It could be that, you know, you have the exact same kind of reward structure packaging of Instagram, but it causes you to like pay more attention to the world immediately around you. Instead of ignoring the world immediately around you, somehow it helps you. Somehow it like in the course of a conversation, it helps you in the conversation. It helps you be more engaged. It helps you be more present, right? That could hypothetically happen, but that's not what these apps currently want right now. They want you disengaged from the world because they want you in their world. But you could design it so that it makes you more present where you are.
Yeah,
you could do that.
Well, so there's always that promise. So it's happened in a really interesting way in drugs, right? So this was my father's big, like, kind of idea, and he wanted to write a book about this. Never ended up doing it, but he would always kind of advocate for this philosophical stance, which I think was deeply Heideggerian and interesting as it applies explicitly to drugs and addiction. So if you are an opium smoker, as he was, there's a whole skillful engagement with the world that's required to be an opium addict. You have these pipes that are, beautifully made with jade or wood, and they're specific to a location, in the Far East or in Iran, and there's the craft of the making of the pipe, and then there's the skill of actually putting the opium into the pipe. It took years and years for people to learn to do this properly. And people would go into the dens in Laos and they wouldn't know how to do it. So there was people there who were just, their job was to roll the opium pipe. And my father learned this skill, and he was really adept at it to a point where people would like look at him with astonishment because he was not from there, right? So it's like hearing, like my friend Jonah, who lives in China, and he speaks fluent Chinese. It was a similar, weird thing to see. And then you have this ritual of the place and the den, and where people would gather, and it was incorporated into the lifestyle of people who also had jobs and lived normal lives. So it wasn't necessarily a problem. You couldn't overdose because it would be you'd require this skill in order to smoke the opium. And if you were too zonked out, you wouldn't be able to do it anymore. And it wasn't just powerful enough. It's just because it's natural. It's a poppy plant that's just creating this thing. So then, what happens? The technological fix comes along where people said, well, this is taking up too much time. We need to give people the ability to just take this more directly. And so morphine was invented to be, and also take the medicinal use of it, right, as a cough suppressant and a painkiller. And so morphine was 10 times stronger than opium and was like given as a cure for opium smoking, right? And then Bayer came along, the pharmaceutical company, and said, well, the problem with the morphine is that it's addictive. We need to make the non-addictive version, and we can be really efficient in making this. And so they made this new product called heroin, which was like the non-addictive version of the morphine, right? And that, till people figured out, obviously, that it's 10 times stronger than the morphine, 100 times stronger than the opium, and much, much worse, right? Then what happened, even recently in my lifetime, there was this like, okay, well, the problem with the heroin is that it makes you feel good. We should just give people the ability to just fix but then not get high. And so they said, well, we're going to fix heroin addiction with methadone. And then you get methadone addicts, which actually turns out is 10 times worse for you than heroin, kills you, gives you bone marrow cancer, fucks you up in a way that you couldn't possibly imagine, and you don't even get high. So it's like, and so there's a sense in which, so you have this progression. And actually, my father did it backwards. He was a heroin addict. He was living in toilets, all the time. He said he had this amazing possible life, and he was like, hiding in the bathroom in squalor and going in and out of rehabs. And then he met Jean Cocteau, the great poet and filmmaker. And Cocteau was an opium addict, and he said, or opium smoker. And he said, look, you're never going to be able to pass from the heroin to the opium because you won't feel the opium. It's so much weaker. But the next time he taught him how to smoke, he shared with him this beautiful ritual. And he said, okay, the next time you get clean and you come out of rehab, and in those days, they used to tie people up to bed and like get sent to Switzerland and like, do a month of severe withdrawal and everything. He said, next time you come out of it, and there's going to be a time when you want to use again, instead of going to the heroin, unless you want to spend your life in toilets and jail, back and forth, try this. And then he got into this beautiful ritual life, which he embraced until he was like 70 years old, and then without having to go to AA or anything, he says he outgrew it. And he stopped smoking, and then when he was 70, and then he got married again and had 2 more children and kind of started a new life after this long 45 years of addiction. So with this background, I'm very weary of the technological fix within the fix.
Yeah, sure.
Right? And it feels that way when you say like...
There's like an embodied outside ritualistic thing that might work better.
Yeah, and I don't think that the fix is going to be in the technological.
The answer is not in the phone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. The phone, and as you like, it's funny you have, and I can see maybe it is because the phone might get more and more expensive and become more into the world, and then you do have apps now for like monitoring the time that you're on it, and meditation apps.
What do you think about like the Pokemon Go phenomenon, where effectively it was a blurring where the app was just a new window onto the outside world, but it made people go outside. It made them go on hikes. You know what I'm talking
of course,
about, right?
Yeah.
The augmented reality thing where you
That's
like
the future probably, yeah.
Try to find little virtual things hidden throughout the world. It was a phenomenon one year, like a long time ago. But that's something that like introduces engagement with the world in some sense. I could easily see arguing both sides, but like it does at least make you see the world in a new way. It makes you do things outside that could nominally be good for you. Is that a kind of ritual that would count?
I mean, I wonder about this. As the technology gets better and better, will it ever get as rich as the world itself? And this gets into simulation theory and everything. Like
the
maybe,
VR thing is pretty
exactly
compelling, right? We both tried VR recently.
But the big difference is that you don't have embodiment, right?
Yeah.
But we can imagine a point where we get there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
and the beauty of the world and the beauty of a great piece of literature, for example, is that it's inexhaustible, right? And here you get into the difference between like a silly game, like even an embodied game like checkers, right? It's just intrinsically less rich for possibility of meaning than a game like chess, for example, right? So we're at the point where the phone is still checkers, but maybe you can imagine where the technology permeates the world so much that it becomes indistinguishable from it, and then it does get rich enough. And I don't know where that distinction lies. Like, how do you make something that's maybe it's just going to take great artists who create great works of art within that technological world, and it becoming rich enough for it to be infinitely inexhaustible, and then we'll just start anew, I guess. But I think about this, like, imagine if this was a VR right now and I could just shut you off and replace you with somebody else. I'm like, let's see what it's like to talk to Salman Rushdie instead of Patrick House.
Hey. I see your point though.
Click, like, why would I stay with you in the room when I could like have anybody at any moment? And then how will people like control that? How will people engage with the world in a non-addictive way, an engaged way?
Yeah, no, it's a really good point. Yeah, that's a really good point. I don't know what to do with that.
We don't know what to do with it.
No, I'm stumped. Well, now I'm Salman Rushdie and I'm just being quiet because he doesn't know what to say. You have to click me back.
Yes, you're back. Let's get Patrick back here, please.
Wow. So have you ever? Do you get bothered when people are on their phones and you're trying to tell them a story or talking to them?
Very.
But you do it.
I don't. I know. I'm rude. I was thinking about this.
Do you have a kitchen safe? Do you have a safe to put it away? So
I bought one of these safes because you inspired it when I met you.
Yeah. Okay.
And then I used it for a few days. This is a timed safe that you can put your phone in and like be off of it for a few hours. And I did it for a few times and I loved it. And also I did screenless Sundays for a while where I just would not have any technology for a whole day. And my life was so much better.
Yeah, it's great. I think the most useful tool when I'm trying to write, like actually write, is the kitchen safe. Like I put my phone and my internet router in there and I just set it for 12 hours and come back tomorrow, or 24 and come back tomorrow.
Amazing.
And it's great. It's absolutely great.
So much. Yeah.
Absolutely great. But I mean, it's fundamentally like it means I don't have the discipline to self-regulate in some sense. Inherently, it's like admitting the problem.
Yeah, no, it is.
And just simply like literally containing the problem.
I'm going to ask for help right now. Like we live together, just tell me, put your phone away now.
Yeah.
Please. Maybe that will help. I don't know.
I've tried it with romantic partners in the past as well. And it never goes well. Like I've tried to be like, can we just have dinner without a phone? Or can we spend a night without a phone? Or something like this. And it comes across as controlling. And, but really it does kind of, to the degree that I'm going to say something LA sounding, but I think my love language is like attention, and it matters to me, and I think it is.
Yeah.
And so it's funny and interesting that like, we're talking about even the polyamory. What the social dilemma made me realize actually is that one of the things that I thought in trying to navigate the like multi-attentive thing, where like there's multiple people that the person has every right to be romantically attending to, or like sexually or romantically attending to, which isn't normal. Wasn't something I was used to. That I realized that we're not just competing with other romantic partners or friends or like the world out there. We're competing with like the entire economy trying to steal people's attention away, right? Like it's not just the romantic partners. It's not just the friends. It's not just the neuroses which is what it used to be, like the competition for attention amongst, because attention is a finite resource. Yeah. There's only so many thoughts in a given day, and they can only be about, it's a finite thing. And, but like so much of the world is clamoring for people's attention. It really is almost like the new oil rush or like manifest destiny, right? There's like little geographic bits of the brain. The different companies are like slowly moving westward, trying to like take over more and more as they get their railroad. Facebook is just like the railroad company.
But so I long more and more for these focused, engaged experiences. And there is a deep irony and an interesting thing to think about is the fact that like one of my most engaged moments in the day is doing this podcast with you. I love it. You know, like we're sitting down, I can't look at my phone,
right?
But it is for the phone eventually. And in the back of my mind, there is a little bit of like, ooh, I hope people like it, you know, and I hope that people click on it.
Yeah.
And so same with like Airbnb, like there's this commodification of like of your home life, and I'm renting out the trailers, and like, you know, there's this kind of dark, cynical way of looking at it. But then there's these really rich, really meaningful experiences that we've had with all the people that we've met that we wouldn't otherwise meet. Absolutely. And it started with this app, but the app has disappeared. Right. And we're now engaging in the world with people from all over the world who come here, and hopefully we put our phones away because we get engaged enough with them, you know, in a really beautiful, specific, skillful way. So there is a light at the end of the tunnel, I think. But it has to start with an awareness of the potential pitfalls. I think the problem now is that it's also new that we're not familiar enough with the possibility of it being a problem. We know how to recognize an alcoholic, right, and we know how to say, okay, this person has a problem. They need to stop. But I don't see that often enough with the phone and social media stuff. I mean, we don't give alcohol to 11-year-olds, but we give them these phones. Like that seems crazy to me. I was on a boat in Italy a few summers ago with Thomas Balmes, who was this great documentary filmmaker who made this film Babies, and our dear friend Fabrizio Mosca, who's a great Italian film producer. And they each had 2 kids, and then there was like the kids' friends. So I was on this boat with 2 men and 6 children, and on a little sailboat floating around the Mediterranean. And I mean, kids are fine, but I'm not super, you know, interested in engaging with them a lot of the time. But these kids were like all really just great to talk to, and they would like not screaming and running around. They were reading books and everything, and I was like, guys. And their mothers weren't there, just these 2 fathers, and I was so blown away by how well behaved these kids were and how interesting they were to talk to and how engaged they were. And I was like, what's the secret? And both of them had said no screens ever. Yeah. And I was like so amazed that they actually had this discipline and remembered what it was like also for us, you know, like sounding old now, but like I do feel really lucky to have grown up without any of this, and actually would like be 12 years old and excited to read a book, right? And there's nothing else to do.
And bored.
Yeah.
Like at the second someone gets bored, they go on their phone, you know, like nobody like embraces or swims in their boredom anymore.
Yeah. And also that uneasiness that comes from boredom that turns into an idea.
It turns into ambition or a new project or something to stave off the boredom. We now have a solution to stave off the boredom. I mean, this is like pain relief. It's pain relief for boredom. Yeah. And that's exactly what opium, heroin, fentanyl, carfentanil like get at.
And those things are still, even those things are useful. We do need morphine. We do need like these things, but let's use them properly, right? Like let's I was listening to Lex Friedman, one of my favorite podcasters, and he did like a little day of in his life, and he's just absurdly disciplined and structured in his life and in his like day-to-day ritual. And he said, I don't want to drop social media because so much good has come from it. And I agree, like the actual social interactions, the actual sharing with the world of things, whether it's this podcast or photos of my recent trip across the country or and this, there is a beautiful way to engage with this stuff, but you need a discipline around it. And his is just like only look at it twice a day and only look at it when you actually post. And then he gives himself 10 minutes after that to kind of look at and do that twice a day. Man, I just admire that level of discipline, and I strive for it. One of our audience members asked us to kind of delve a little deeper into like discipline and rules versus just going by inspiration in the creative process. I imagine they were going for. Do you have any ideas on that?
I mean, I put my phone in a timed kitchen safe. No, I'm not good at discipline. I mean, that is a kind of discipline. That is a kind of discipline. It's a kind of meta discipline, but it's because I don't have discipline that I physically, physically structure my world to try to be more disciplined. I don't know. Maybe that's similar. Like it's like the to-do list or something. It's like a physical thing that is outside of you that structures your thoughts.
Yeah.
But no, I don't have good. No, I'm not good at that.
You can't self-control moment by moment. You have to self-control in the larger picture. I mean, this is the lesson that they teach also in Alcoholics Anonymous or something. You have to make a big commitment to like not drinking, not decide every moment. Now do I want to drink? Now do I want to drink? Let's hope I don't want to drink. I think
it's too. Then the thing becomes what you most pay attention to.
Yeah.
Right. Like by virtue of if you have to decide always, if you're making constant micro decisions, that means your attention of your finite amount of thoughts per day, a double-digit percentage is going to the thing that you're not supposed to be thinking about. Right.
Yeah.
Like it's a problematic cycle.
And on the positive side of that, like you want to just be working on something so that the inspiration can come. I think you can't just like say, oh, now do I want to write? And do I have a great idea? It's better just be sit down and writing and then hope that, and then on some days, great things will emerge. Right.
Yeah.
Like playing the piano too. Like I have to play every day in order for sometimes lovely things to come out. It's not like I'm walking around saying, oh, I now have a lovely idea for a piece of music. Like you have to be sit down playing and then that magic happens. So I do think we need to erect structures basically.
But there's an inevitability also to the kinds of things which do reward our brain. Like there's a study with monkeys. If you dehydrate a monkey, they will like do anything for juice. Like they just will love juice. And you had this monkey that was given juice. So now he has some and it becomes currency effectively. And so the question is, what will he trade the juice for? I've told this story before, but basically you can get them to trade this. In this one study, you can get a male monkey to trade its juice for two things: pictures of the faces of higher status males or pictures of female asses in estrus. And you can go to the checkout supermarket counter and look at the magazines, and that is what we do. You can go to Instagram and see who people follow. That is what, it's like you're not going to get away. You can structure as much as you want, but there is an intrinsic reward system to our social primate selves that you're going to have to work with and deal with, that you're not going to be able to eliminate. We like pictures of celebrities because they're higher status males, females, right? We pay money. You go to the checkout, you pay your little $8 for a little tabloid magazine. What do you get? You get asses and faces of higher status.
Although
males.
now we don't pay money anymore because we've become the product.
Well, that's what I mean. But on Instagram, people follow aspirational accounts and probably like aspirational and aspirational accounts. And it's no different. It's just the same rewards being like kind of modernized. So yes, I totally agree that you're going to have some superstructure of discipline, but it is also the case that you cannot ignore the kinds of things that we naturally respond to in terms of our reward.
I would love people to comment if you're watching this on YouTube. It's annoying that on Spotify you can't comment. But then I guess on Instagram you could come and comment on my Instagram page. You don't have one. You have Twitter. What's your Twitter?
I have Twitter at Dr. Mr. Patrick.
Dr. Dr.
Dr. Patrick. I don't know why I did that. I annoy myself.
Okay. Well, anyway, you should follow him on Twitter. I'm on Instagram, Tao Ruspoli.
And send emails. I did get one email.
Yeah,
Remember
you did.
when I send out my APB for emails? Yeah. Nice.
But I would in wherever you are able to reach us, please. I think the most obvious is if you're watching this on YouTube, and then there's the comment section. But I would love to hear people's techniques for engaging in a healthy way with these media, because there has to be a way. Obviously, we wouldn't be doing this if in the documentary filmmaking world, there used to be this ideal of the cinema verite, right? That if you could just be a fly on the wall and like capture life as it would happen if there weren't a camera, and it quickly was kind of acknowledged that that's just a false dream.
That's what I meant about science a lot earlier, right? From the outside, it seems like science should be objective. You're supposed to capture everything, but you have a lens. That was my argument about the fact that it is a carved out storytelling, right?
Yes. Yeah.
The data in its comprehensive whole is like life as it happens. But when you take a single lens, you're going to get a distorted view. In the same way that cinema verite is impossible, like complete objective, scientific kind of full understanding is also impossible.
Yeah, and I think that so what happened in the documentary world, I think that there was a realization of the impossibility and an acknowledgement that maybe it's better to accept that the camera's there and not see that as a limitation, but seeing it as the possibility of opening up a deeper truth. And so like when you turn the camera on somebody, they will often say things that they wouldn't say otherwise. It opens up the possibility of a more depth. And I do think that at their best, these media do allow for that as well. And I think like we wouldn't be sitting down having these conversations every morning. We would, but it wouldn't be nearly as focused or profound as if we were doing it for the podcast. Yeah. So I think one way that, and I also you see astonishing musicality, for example, on people on YouTube, like the skillfulness from the person least expected places, right? Yeah. Some garage in Iowa is this guy shredding on the guitar, and it works. Millions of people want to see this, and then they engage, and the cleverest comments get up top, and there is a beauty to that. Skillful, and there is a skillful engagement with the world in some of these media, but the problem is the media seems to kind of always go towards lessening that. For some reason, the arc of the technology is to lessen the need for skillful engagement and try and make that more and more ephemeral. Even so, like photography, people used to make fun of photographers because it was a skillless endeavor, right? Even like Gore Vidal wrote an essay about like why photography can never be art, right? So it wasn't even that long ago, because I mean, compared to painting, right? The way you needed to paint, the skill and engagement you needed to paint a landscape versus clicking a button. But human beings are essentially skill building, what we call ourselves, not machines, but creatures, and then photography became skillful, and there was great photographers, and then Photoshop came along and obviated all the need for that skill, and then you get Instagram and the phone where you can just apply the filter without even the skill of the Photoshop. It's even less skill, right? Yeah. And then at least you used to have the feed, which was like this permanent record that you would kind of curate, right? And then that went away because the stories that had to be like so immediate and then disappear. They want you to
come back in search of a new point of view. They want you to come back in search of a new and replacing point of view as much as possible. They want you to add more and people to be like, oh, what am I missing? And to go back, right?
But now I do see hints of people like using the medium really skillfully. And interestingly.
There is an artistic kind of curation of the thing and the form itself, and people now think about like, oh, what is the whole what does my whole like collection collage of photos look like? Is there a color palette that is me consistent across all of the photos, right?
Yeah.
People are building a gallery. They're building
absolutely. But then, but there is this sense of like it always getting smaller and more impoverished. Like, there's the famous Sunset Boulevard line, like the pictures, what was it? Used to be big. I'm still big. It's the pictures that got small, right? She says, and that was a dig at television. And then can you imagine like Norma Desmond, like thinking of people watching a movie on like this little? I know. Like you would think we'd get bigger and better. Right. And instead it just gets smaller and worse. And the quality, I mean, even if you buy the shittiest amateur, like Super 8 camera from like decades ago, the quality of the image is way better than what we have now.
Yeah.
Same with audio quality, like these old stereos and everything. But there is a rediscovery of these things, and I don't know. I go back and forth between optimism and fatalism with these things.
Yeah.
You look ready to stop, or are you just thinking?
I'm thinking. It's funny. I'm thinking about my phone.
Are you?
Yeah.
Are you wondering if there's been if you're getting?
Well, no. Just the phone contains so much information that I've been deprived of for the last 50 minutes or whatever. It is true, like, right? Like it's building up. I used to go to a movie. I'd turn my phone off, leave it at home, go to a movie, in part because, I mean, I'm like a salt and fat kind of guy. So the popcorn is a nice reward, but also after the movie, I knew I would come back to my home. It was kind of like a 2-hour timed kitchen safe. I'd come back to my home and who knows what could be waiting for me.
Oh yeah, no, you can build it up.
Like, so I want
It's
an
like
email.
not masturbating for several days.
Yeah, it's like things build. It
Feels better.
it collects.
Jeff Dyer, our mutual friend, rented a house near here in the desert where there was purposefully no router and no internet. And
Brilliant.
And I said, how is it? And he's like, terrible. And you're just spend all your time wondering when you're going to get to be on the internet again.
Exactly.
And then when you do, you're like, oh, great. And like,
that's great.
So that in that sense, we are just deeply addicted.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, you just, again, find a replace, right? We were replacing relationships and love with heroin a bit ago, right? Or just in terms of like replacing all the love songs. You realize how mad love can actually make people. By virtue of just the thought experience.
Mad, not angry, like insane.
Yeah, like madness. Yeah, absolutely. Consuming. Yeah, it's the same with this stuff. We are not made to self-discipline. It like takes so much effort and work. It's interesting.
So, the advice in the social dilemma was to just delete your accounts.
Yeah, that doesn't seem right. To me, that doesn't seem right. That doesn't seem like the way that you. I mean, that's cold turkey. That's.
I'm also excited about this new engagement with what it is to be human. Like we've been there, done that. As far as like none of the technology.
Right.
Like I know people who are old and refuse. Like I'm thinking particularly of this artist I know in Venice Beach who's a great carpenter and everything, and he just no phone, no internet, home landline with the answering machine and everything. Fuck, it's awesome. Yeah, he's great. He's skillful. Like I love going down there and sitting down and having a cup of coffee with him. That's not what I want with my life. I feel like I need to find an original and meaningful way to engage with this stuff that acknowledges the pitfalls, but also like is on the forefront of like this new definition of what it is to be human.
So I think the only solution is temporal binning. So I think the only thing that works is you say, okay, I will check my email. I mean, this doesn't work as like a modern like professional though. Like you only check email for 5 minutes at the end of the hour.
Yeah.
From 9:55 to 10, from 10:55 to 11. Because the brain, people think that it's the positive reward when you get the like alert and notification that like that's where the addiction is happening. It's absolutely not where the addiction is happening. The addiction is happening when you look at your phone and you don't have a notification. Because that is still meaningful information. If you know that the phone at any given time will tell you when you have an email or a text or an Instagram DM or whatever it's called, that means that when you look at the phone and see the absence of that, you are still processing that information as the absence of a reward. The brain is not like off in that moment.
Right, and the phone even just being there, right? Like even
well, like,
talk about that. Like the fact that I haven't looked at it this hour doesn't mean that I haven't engaged with it. Just by thinking about it and wondering what's happening, whether
if
we're going to have rewards when we get off.
If you have your vibration on or like it's on, and you know that if you get a text, it will alert you, or you get an email, it will alert you. Every single second that you're not getting an alert, your brain is understanding that it's not getting an alert.
Oh, that's really important.
So it's not ignoring the phone. It is still internalizing information because it's possible that you could be getting a reward.
Wow.
So I really think the only way to do this is to time bin it. So what I mean, like, so if you only do 5 minutes per hour, that means that between, timestamp 00 and 55, your brain is not noticing the absence of a reward.
Yeah.
It's not noticing the absence of a signal. It's like, I actually don't have access to this information. And it's the only way to get your brain to shut up. Like it's the only way to get it to not be continued. You are 24/7 in their reward circuitry, in their reward structure, even when you're not getting a notification.
Amazing.
That's why the first thing they do, every single app is like, oh, hey, we noticed you didn't have a notification on. Do you want to maybe allow some notifications?
So turning off notifications is definitely a good first step. That's what we did. Nastasia and I after
but
watching the
even
film.
visual notifications, even the little one that appears over the app's icon, that counts because when you look at it and you see nothing, you just learned a bit of information. And the whole point is you need to turn off the information flow, the information spigot. And if you can completely either the absence or the presence of incoming information, you just turn it off.
My problem is I find some of these solutions and they work for a while and then I slowly drift away from them. So for example, a no phone in the bedroom is a great rule.
Yeah.
And then that lasts a few weeks and then you sneak it back in and you're like...
I don't have a demarcated bedroom. It's hard for me.
You can make the screen grayscale.
Mine's grayscale.
All the time?
80% of the time.
Because then you can. I've learned that a trick for like turning it back on quickly. Because like if I
I
want
do
to for
3.
an image, 3
Yeah,
same.
really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do 3 thumb presses.
Yeah, I do
It's
3 on the
grayscale.
side. Should I look at my phone? There's notifications.
You're done for.
I am fucked. Yeah, I mean, anyway, I think we can stop.
All right.
I want to see my notifications, and we're at 59 minutes and 49 seconds, 50 seconds.
I
We're-
can't
it's-
wait.
we have
Maybe I
such
got an email. Maybe my publisher wrote me. Maybe an old lover wrote me. Oh my God, who knows? It's going to be so exciting. I get texts and WhatsApp and emails.
We'll tell you about it tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll read all of them tomorrow.
I was thinking we were supposed to do Coming Home Part 2, but we'll do that tomorrow.
Yeah. All right.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.